All right, it's district breakdown time, and I'm excited because me and Diggs are finally into some districts, and we are talking 5A Division Two districts, starting with three 5A Division Two. We got backs-to-back monster districts. Monster not only because they're nine-team districts, but because they have such amazing teams in it. I mean, somebody's not going to make the playoffs, and there's like six or seven of them that are used to it almost every year. Talk to me about the strength of this district first, and then start breaking them down for me, Diggsy.
Yeah, Ward. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't just have to criticize the UIL just a little bit for this. I mean, where I think, the UIL can only do so much. I think this is the year that everybody really knows that we need a 7A because when you have to compact 36 teams into four Metroplex districts, and then you have it in this kind of a format, to me, it's telling us it's time. It's time we got to do something with this because you got 4 and 5 team districts in part of the state, and you got 36 teams in 4 districts, and we got some really good teams. And Ward, I remember last year, I'm going to give you all of the credit when it comes to my district champion prediction because you said you talked to Coach Rogers over there at Argyle, and they said they're about a year or two away from being really, really good. And when you look at what they got coming back, Ward, you got McGuire Gasperson coming back at quarterback. You got Will Kryziak at wide receiver, Braden Bach at tight end. For me, even though they lost last year to Colleyville Heritage, and Colleyville Heritage is in this district, I
Right?
got to give Argyle the nod when it comes to the district front runners, especially given how much Colleyville Heritage graduated and how much Argyle has coming back. In Stillward, I think they're probably a year or two away from being a legitimate state championship contender, but I think that they got to be considered the district favorites. Right now, I think their weakness is at running back. They got two really talented running backs who are auditioning in spring ball, Watson Bell and Chase Bagley, who are going to be trying to figure out who's going to be that running back who's going to lead Argyle. But McGuire Gasperson really shined last year with him at quarterback coming back. I really like what Argyle has because when you look at everybody else in the district, there's a lot of offensive leadership that's missing. We could talk about Colleyville Heritage and Mansfield Timberview being very heavy on defense, and that's great. But the fact that Argyle is so heavy on offense, I think is what's going to give them a little bit of the edge in this district.
Yeah, and Gasperson, he got his shine when he had to fill in for the injured quarterback against Emerson, and they ended up pulling that thing out, and then he kind of took it from there. I think we agree that this way too many teams in the district, but I like the fact that we're seeing teams play each other that, man, you haven't seen in God knows how long. I don't know if Argyle's ever played Summit because Summit's been Division 1, and Argyle's been in 4A for so long. But and then you got them; they're gonna have to travel to Everman at some point. Talk about some of these other teams. I know you touched on Timberview a little bit, but maybe talk about the Mansfield teams a little bit that are in this district.
Yeah, we're drawing our lines in diagonals right now instead of up and down or left and right. You look at the way the UIL did this. We're drawing it in diagonals. I think Mansfield Timberview is going to be a better team. I know, Ward, they were your de facto state championship team the last couple of years. I think you need to lower your ambitions a little bit with Mansfield Timberview. But Mansfield Timberview defensively, even though they lost in the first round to Wakeland, they're really going to be good defensively. I'm looking at guys coming back like Sean Larry and Caden Bates and Dylan Battle. I mean, just the stud defensive tackle for them. For me, Timberview is going to be, can they get something going offensively? Offensively, they've got 3 really good receivers coming back in Chance Collins, Isaiah Harrison, and Kobe Gooden. I really like that running back Jalen Woods that they've got coming back. But who's going to be quarterback for Mansfield Timberview, and what's that offensive system going to look like? But defensively, they've got some beasts coming back. Mansfield Summit is going to be really good as well. They lost to Texas High last year in the second round of the playoffs, but they got their quarterback coming back in Damaris Bird, and he was a special young player last year. I think that he has a really good chance to shine and get better. When I watched him last year, he really he was a raw talent. So I think if he can really get defined, get to some quarterback camps, he can be a really special player. Braylon Moore, another really good athlete coming back from Mansfield Summit. Defensively, they've got Christian Jones coming back and Michael Freeman, the strong safety. But they've got really, for me, they've got depth issues, despite the fact that they're coming from Division 1 into Division 2. I still wonder what kind of depth they're going to have. But I do think Timberview and Mansfield Summit, as are going to be playoff teams, which means, Ward, there's going to be a lot of good teams, as you said, that are
Yeah.
not going to be making the playoffs.
Yeah, if those two make it, that means one of the two teams that share a stadium aren't going to make it, and that's Colleyville Heritage, who, as you mentioned, beat Argyle last year, and then there's Grapevine, who, I mean, we talked off camera, and you're thinking this might be a tough 2 years for Grapevine, right?
Yeah, I think Grapevine is really going to have. They were so senior heavy last year. We talked about how it felt like for the last couple of years the same players were on the roster over and over and over again. Well, they're all gone, so we got to figure out who's going to be that next player for Grapevine. I think Grapevine's going to be taking a big step back. The only player who made all district honors who's going to be coming back from the 6-4 team last year is Ian Hatton, who's a really talented tight end. But we got to replace everybody. If you remember, Ward, in our campfire last year, we talked about the new coach, Coach Edwards over at Colleyville Heritage, and how he was a defensive-minded coach. I think we're really going to see that pay dividends this year. I know you look at last year, the fact that they had some of these really big shootouts, 40, 50-point games, lost to Frisco Emerson in the playoffs 59-48. But they really have all of their defensive stars coming back. Dax Hebison, Bryson Burgess, Hayden West are three really good standout players. Bodie Weaver is expected to step in at quarterback. I think he's going to be a special player. Colin Bennett expected to step in at running back. A lot of hype, but no statistics quite yet for these two players. But I think from what I've seen in 7-on-7 and off-season evaluation, that they're going to hold their own. I actually like Colleyville Heritage second in this district, ahead of the Mansfield Timberview and Mansfield Summit squads. But that does mean the team that will be sharing that stadium with them will not make the playoffs. And a team that I'm really excited about, just about any other team, any other district in the area, I would have picked them to make the playoffs. Remember, Ward, the Colony beat Denton Ryan.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, this is a team that has a pedigree. Now they're coming down to D2, and we're not going to let them make the playoffs. What's wrong with us, Ward?
That's wild. That's wild. That's another. It's kind of the outlier in this district because they're, they've been in Division I and they're out there in Louisville and they're, you said the line is diagonal, but they got in there anyway. And you say they don't make the playoffs, and maybe talk about them and the other two teams, Seguin and the other three teams, Seguin, Burleson, and Everman.
My heart is broken now. I mean, we're talking about teams that we were talking about dark horses last year.
Yeah.
Arlington Seguin should have made the playoffs last year. Everman did make the playoffs last year. The Colony beat Denton Ryan, and they're in a really tough district. And they've got an all-district quarterback coming back in Carson Cox. They've got Xavier Green, who was offensive newcomer of the year. They've got Carmelo Torres. But what I worry about with the Colony is the infrastructure, the lines. They have to play. I don't know who they've got on the lines.
Yeah.
And, Argyle's going to have good lines. Colleyville Heritage is going to have good lines. Summit's going to have good lines. Timberview's going to have good lines. I think if the Colony can develop some offensive line consistency, maybe that's where we'll be wrong about them, but I think they're just going to be a step below things. And Arlington Seguin, I mean, they might have the best player in the district in Gartarius Brown.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm wondering where are they going to get their wins in this district, because we've just talked about five no-brainer teams that could make the playoffs. Then you got Arlington Seguin there. You got Grapevine. You've got Everman. I've got Everman 8th in this district, and this was a team that made the playoffs last year, lost to South Oak Cliff, and they got Robert McMillan coming back. They got Aiden Lopez de la Cruz coming back. But who's going to be quarterback for Everman? I think that's going to be the big question. And then Burleson, that's my team that I just think is going to be on the outside looking in. They got to figure out their head coach. They've lost a lot of players in transfer, so but they're going to be better, but can they close that gap with all of these teams in this district?
Hey, man, give me the 1 through 9 before we preview next week.
Through 9, I've got number 1, Argyle, number 2, Colleyville Heritage, 3, Mansfield Timberview, 4, Mansfield Summit. All 4 of those are going to be serious threats to make regional runs, could potentially make it to the state semifinals. Just on the outside looking in, and again, Ward, these are all really good teams. We're not saying, you're 5th place in this district, you're no good. You're 5th place in this district, and you're a hard luck 5th place. I got the Colony 5th, Arlington Seguin 6th, Grapevine 7th, Everman 8th. Playoff teams 7th and 8th. In Burleson, I've got them 9th.
Hey, Dix, thanks for joining us, man. And I appreciate you giving us 1 through 9, even though we're in April. But you always come through for us.
What I'm here for, Ward.